Welcome to The Principles in Man, selections from Theosophy's sacred teachings in The Key to Theosophy, Part 1 of 2 on Words of Wisdom. Madame Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, vegetarian, was born in 1831 into a noble family in Ukraine or Urane. As a child, young Helena displayed a gift for clairvoyance as well as an interest in metaphysical phenomena. Years later, she traveled throughout Europe, the Middle East, and India, studying with various teachers and Sufi saints. Following the guidance of an Indian yogi named Mahatma Maurya, vegetarian, Madame Blavatsky, vegetarian, co-founded the Theosophical Society. Theosophy, meaning divine wisdom, refers to knowledge that comes through spiritual experience rather than intellectual understanding alone. The Theosophical Society is dedicated to uplifting humanity through a realization of the oneness of life and the wisdom underlying all religions. Madame Blavatsky wrote several important books on Theosophy, including Isis Unveiled, The Secret Doctrine, The Key to Theosophy, and The Voice of the Silence. The Key to Theosophy unlocks the door that leads to a deeper study of Theosophy. In contrast to other Theosophy volumes, it is written in simple explanatory language. Readers are thus able to more easily understand its fundamental principles. Today on Words of Wisdom, we invite you to join us for excerpts from The Key to Theosophy on the various post-mortem states on nirvana. The Theosophist stated, we speak of an animal, a human, and a spiritual soul, and distinguish between them. Plato, for instance, calls rational soul that which we call buddhi, adding to it the adjective of spiritual, however, but that which we call the reincarnating ego, manas, he calls spirit, nous, etc., whereas we apply the term spirit when standing alone and without any qualification to Atma alone. Pythagoras repeats our archaic doctrine when stating that the ego, nous, is eternal with deity, that the soul only passed through various stages to arrive at divine's excellence, while Thumos returned to the earth and even the friend, the lower manas, was eliminated. Again, Plato defines soul or buddhi as the motion that is able to move itself. Soul, he adds, is the most ancient of all things and the commencement of motion, thus calling Atma buddhi soul and mana spirit, which we do not. Soul was generated prior to body, and body is posterior and secondary, as being according to nature, ruled over by the ruling soul. The soul, which administers all things that are moved in every way, administers likewise the heavens. Soul then leads everything in heaven and on earth and in the sea by its movements, the names of which are to will, to consider, to take care of, to consult, to form opinions true and false, to be in a state of joy, sorrow, confidence, fear, hate, love, together with all such primary movements as are allied to these. Being a goddess herself, she ever takes as an ally nous, a god, and disciplines all things correctly and happily, but when with anoia, not nous, it works out everything the contrary. The positive state is essential being, but no manifestation as such. When the spirit, in Buddhistic parlance, enters nirvana, it loses objective existence but retains subjective being. To objective minds, this is becoming absolute nothing. To subjective no thing, nothing to be displayed to sense. Thus, their nirvana means the certitude of individual immortality in spirit, not in soul, which, though the most ancient of all things, is still, along with all the other gods, a finite emanation in forms and individuality, if not in substance. The inquirer asked for further clarification. I do not quite seize the idea yet, and would be thankful to have you explain this to me by some illustrations. The Theosophist expounded, I must tell you one thing, and this is that unless you have studied thoroughly well the separate functions assigned to all the human principles and the state of all these after death, you will hardly realize our Eastern philosophy. On the various principles in man. The inquirer commented, I have heard a good deal about this constitution of the inner man, as you call it, but could never make head or tail on tea, as Gabalis expresses it. The Theosophist continued, Of course, it is most difficult, and as you say, puzzling, to understand correctly and distinguish between the various aspects, called by us the principles of the real ego. It is the more so as there exists a notable difference in the numbering of those principles by various Eastern schools, though at the bottom there is the same identical substratum of teaching. The inquirer questioned, Do you mean the Vedantins? As an instance, don't they divide your 7 principles into 5 only? The Theosophist answered, They do, but though I would not presume to dispute the point with a learned Vedantin, I may yet state as my private opinion that they have an obvious reason for it. With them, it is only that compound spiritual aggregate which consists of various mental aspects that is called man at all, the physical body being in their view something beneath contempt and merely an illusion. Nor is the Vedanta the only philosophy to reckon in this manner. Lao Tzu, in his Tao Te King, mentions only 5 principles because he, like the Vedantins, omits to include 2 principles, namely the spirit or Atma and the physical body, the latter of which, moreover, he calls the cadaver. Then there is the Taraka Raja Yoga school. Its teaching recognizes only 3 principles in fact, but then, in reality, they are Stulapati, or the physical body, in its waking conscious state. They are Sukshmapati, the same body in Swapna, or the dreaming state, and their Karanopati, or causal body, or that which passes from one incarnation to another, are all dual in their aspects, and thus make 6. Add to this Atma the impersonal divine principle or the immortal element in man, undistinguished from the universal spirit, and you have the same 7 again. They are welcome to hold to their division. We hold to ours. The inquirer commented, Then it seems almost the same as the division made by the mystic Christians, body, soul, and spirit. The Theosophist expounded, just the same. We could easily make of the body the vehicle of the vital double, of the latter the vehicle of life, or prana, of kamarupa, or animal soul, the vehicle of the higher and the lower mind, and make of these 6 principles, crowning the whole with the one immortal spirit. In occultism, every qualificative change in the state of our consciousness gives to man a new aspect, and if it prevails and becomes part of the living and acting ego, it must be and is given a special name to distinguish the man in that particular state from the man he is when he places himself in another state. The inquirer commented, "It is just that which it is so difficult to understand." The Theosophist stated further, "It seems to me very easy. On the contrary, once that you have seized the main idea, that is, that man acts on this or another plane of consciousness, in strict accordance with his mental and spiritual condition." For more information, please visit Project Gutenberg, gutenberg.org.